In the heart of Mississippi, a state etched with the indelible scars of a divided past, a collision course is set. Our story begins at Evergreen Nursing Home, a place where time seems to hold its breath, and where the ghosts of prejudice still whisper in the hallways. Enter Maya, a 25-year-old nursing student, her spirit as bright as the hope she carries within her. A young woman of color stepping into a world that once sought to exclude her, armed with nothing but an unwavering belief in the power of kindness. But in the shadows lurks Dorothy, a 92-year-old woman, a relic of a bygone era, her heart hardened by the ingrained biases of her privileged past. From their very first encounter, a chilling animosity takes root. Derogatory words are flung like stones, and the simple act of care is met with bitter rejection. "People like you didn't belong here," she scoffs, a stark reminder of the deep chasm that separates them. Tonight, on Heartfelt Tales, we delve into a profound narrative of prejudice and perseverance, of a young woman's unwavering resolve against the stubborn walls of ingrained hatred. Can one act of kindness, one genuine connection, truly pierce a heart calcified by a lifetime of division? This is a story packed with raw emotion and historical weight. This video contains a wealth of information, so please stay with us until the very end to grasp the full impact of this transformative journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's unravel this compelling tale together. The air in Mississippi carried a weight that Maya could feel in her bones. At 25, she was a nursing student with a quiet strength, her dark skin a testament to a heritage she wore with pride. Born to African parents who'd immigrated to the States, she'd grown up hearing stories of resilience, tales of ancestors who'd fought for dignity in a world that often refused to grant it. Now, as she stepped through the gates of Evergreen Nursing Home, she felt the echoes of that struggle all around her. This wasn't just any nursing home. It was a relic of the South's troubled past, a place where the ghosts of segregation lingered in the peeling paint and the creaking floors. And yet, Maya had chosen it for her internship. She believed in kindness, believed it could pierce through even the hardest of hearts, even here. From the moment she arrived, she sensed the eyes on her. Some of the staff smiled warmly, others cast quick, guarded glances. The residents, mostly elderly white folks who'd lived through a different era, watched her with curiosity or suspicion. Maya didn't flinch. She'd expected this. She'd heard the whispers about Evergreen, how it had once been a whites-only facility, how some of its residents still clung to old ways. But she wasn't here to fight history. She was here to care, to heal, to prove something she'd always held true: kindness didn't care about color. Her first week passed in a blur of tasks, changing bedpans, delivering meals, taking vitals. She moved with purpose, her smile a quiet defiance against the tension that hung in the air. Most residents warmed to her eventually, softened by her gentle hands and steady voice. Most, but not all. On her third day, she met Dorothy. Dorothy was 92, frail as a bird but sharp as a blade. Her snow-white hair framed a face etched with lines of pride and bitterness, and her pale blue eyes seemed to pierce right through Maya. She sat in her wheelchair by the window, her gnarled hands clutching a faded quilt, staring out at a world she no longer recognized. The head nurse had warned Maya about her: old money, old South. She's not easy. But Maya wasn't fazed. She approached with a tray of tea, her voice soft but firm. "Good morning, Mrs. Dorothy. I brought you some tea." Dorothy didn't turn. "I don't want it," she snapped, her voice brittle. "And it's Miss Dorothy to you." Maya paused, then set the tray down anyway. "All right, Miss Dorothy. I'll leave it here if you change your mind." That was the beginning. From then on, Dorothy made it clear she didn't want Maya near her. She called her the help when she thought Maya couldn't hear, refused her assistance with a scowl, and once, when Maya tried to adjust her pillow, Dorothy jerked away and sneered, "Back in my day, people like you couldn't do a job like this, Maya. I'm sure you know that." The words hit like a slap, but Maya swallowed her anger. She could feel the heat rising in her chest, the urge to snap back, to tell this old woman exactly what she thought of her, day. But she didn't. Instead, she straightened up, met Dorothy's gaze, and said nothing. She'd prove herself another way, not with words, but with actions. Inside, though, it stung. Maya wasn't naive. She knew places like Evergreen carried scars, knew some hearts were too hardened to soften. But she'd come here with a purpose. She'd seen what kindness could do, how it had turned her own father from a bitter man into one who hugged her tight every night. If it could change him, it could change anyone. Even Dorothy. So she kept going, day after day, her resolve a quiet fire burning beneath her calm exterior. This wasn't just about a job. It was about something bigger. Dorothy's world was a museum of memories, each one polished and preserved in the amber of her mind. She'd been born in 1933, in a sprawling Mississippi mansion with white columns and a staff of black servants who bowed their heads when her father walked by. Her childhood was a tapestry of privilege, cotton dresses, Sunday church, and lessons in how the world worked. "They're not like us," her mother had said once, nodding toward the maid scrubbing the floors. "They're not capable of real kindness. They do what they do because they have to, or because they want something." Her father had agreed, his voice low and firm, "Never trust them, Dorothy. It's just the way things are." Those words had rooted deep, growing into a belief she carried like a second skin. Now, decades later, she sat in Evergreen, her body failing but her mind still tethered to that past. The world outside had changed, laws had shifted, faces on TV looked different, but Dorothy hadn't. To her, Maya was an intruder, a living contradiction to everything she'd been taught. A black girl in a nurse's uniform? It was absurd. Every time Maya entered her room, Dorothy felt a flicker of unease, a reminder of how far her world had slipped from its moorings. And so she pushed back, hard. It started small. Maya would bring her meals, and Dorothy would shove the tray away, muttering, "I'm not hungry." Maya would offer to help her to the bathroom, and Dorothy would wave her off with a curt, "I can manage." But it grew sharper over time. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the room orange, Maya carried in a plate of mashed potatoes and green beans, Dorothy's favorite, according to the kitchen staff. She set it on the table with a smile. "Thought you might like this tonight, Miss Dorothy." Dorothy didn't look up from her quilt. "I don't want anything from you," she said, her voice cold. "Take it back." Maya hesitated. "It's no trouble. I can." "I said take it back." Dorothy's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. "You think I don't know what this is? You're not fooling me, girl." Maya froze, the plate still in her hands. "I'm just trying to help," she said quietly. "Help?" Dorothy scoffed. "You're here because they make you be here. Don't pretend it's anything else." She turned back to the window, dismissing her. Maya stood there for a moment, the weight of Dorothy's words sinking in. Then she picked up the tray and left without a sound. That night, she sat in the break room, staring at her coffee, replaying the exchange. She wasn't surprised, hurt, yes, but not surprised. Dorothy's venom came from a place Maya couldn't reach, not yet. It was the voice of a past that refused to die, a past that saw her as less than human. But she wouldn't give up. Not yet. The next clash came a week later. Dorothy's shirt had come unbuttoned, and Maya stepped forward to fix it, her fingers quick and gentle. Before she could finish, Dorothy slapped her hand away, the sound sharp in the quiet room. "Don't touch me," she hissed. "Do you know that back in the day, people like you weren't allowed to touch me?" Maya pulled back, her breath catching. The words echoed in her head, each one a jagged edge. She wanted to say something, to tell Dorothy that, back in the day, was gone, that she wasn't a servant or a shadow. But she didn't. She clenched her fists, took a step back, and nodded. "I'll leave you be," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Then she turned and walked out, her heart pounding. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. She could feel the tears prickling, but she blinked them away. She'd known this wouldn't be easy. She'd seen the way some of the other residents looked at her, heard the muttered comments from a few staff members who thought she didn't belong. But Dorothy was different. Her hatred wasn't quiet, it was loud, deliberate, a wall built from decades of belief. And yet, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that there was something beneath it. Pain, maybe. Fear. Something she could reach if she just kept trying. That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment. She thought of her grandmother, who'd worked as a maid in a house not unlike Dorothy's childhood home, scrubbing floors, biting her tongue, smiling through the insults. "They can't take your heart, baby," she'd told Maya once. "You keep it kind, no matter what." Maya clung to that now. Dorothy could reject her, insult her, push her away. But she couldn't take her heart. Not unless Maya let her. So she went back the next day, and the day after that. She brought Dorothy her tea, adjusted her blankets, spoke to her softly even when the old woman glared or turned away. It wasn't easy. Every barb stung, every rejection weighed on her. But Maya kept going, driven by a belief that kindness wasn't just a gift, it was a force. And she'd wield it until something gave. The night was heavy with silence when it happened. Evergreen Nursing Home had settled into its usual rhythm, soft snores from the residents' rooms, the hum of a distant air conditioner, the occasional creak of a nurse's shoes on the linoleum floor. Maya was on the late shift, her eyes tired but alert as she made her rounds. She'd just finished checking on Mr. Henderson in room 12 when she heard it, a faint thud, like a book slipping off a shelf. It came from Dorothy's room. She moved quickly, her heart picking up speed. The door was ajar, and when she pushed it open, she saw Dorothy crumpled on the floor beside her bed, her frail body twisted at an odd angle. Her wheelchair sat empty a few feet away, tipped slightly as if she tried to stand on her own. "Miss Dorothy." Maya's voice broke the stillness as she rushed to her side. The old woman's face was pale, her lips tinged blue, and her chest heaved in shallow, uneven gasps. A heart attack, Maya knew the signs from her training. She dropped to her knees, her hands steady despite the panic clawing at her throat. "Hold on, I've got you," she said, her voice firm but gentle. She pressed 2 fingers to Dorothy's neck, feeling for a pulse, weak, erratic. She tilted Dorothy's head back, checked her airway, then began chest compressions, counting under her breath. 1, 2, 3, the room blurred around her, the world narrowing to the rhythm of her hands and the faint hope that she wasn't too late. She shouted for help between breaths, her voice echoing down the hall. "Someone get the crash cart. Now." Minutes stretched into eternity, but help came, another nurse, then the night doctor, rushing in with equipment. Maya stepped back, her arms trembling, as they took over. She watched them work, her chest tight with a mix of fear and relief. Dorothy's eyes fluttered briefly before closing again, her body limp as they stabilized her. "She's got a pulse," the doctor said finally, and Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They moved Dorothy to the infirmary, and Maya followed, her legs shaky but her resolve unshaken. She'd saved her. For now, at least. In the haze of unconsciousness, Dorothy drifted. Her mind, unmoored from the present, slipped back to a time she'd buried deep. She was 6 years old again, standing by the creek behind her family's estate, the sun warm on her face. Beside her was Lila, a black girl with braids and a gap-toothed smile, the daughter of their cook. They'd been inseparable that summer, chasing dragonflies, skipping stones, giggling over secrets only children understand. One day, Dorothy had slipped on the muddy bank, tumbling into the water. She'd flailed, choking on the current, until Lila's small hands grabbed her and pulled her to safety. She could still feel the cold of the creek, the warmth of Lila's grip. But then came the aftermath, her father's rage, her mother's icy voice. "What was that girl doing touching you?" they demanded. Lila had been whipped for it, her cries echoing through the servants' quarters while Dorothy hid in her room, tears streaming down her face. "She saved me," she'd whispered to her pillow, but no one listened. After that, Lila was gone, sent away, her family told never to return. Dorothy had learned her lesson: kindness from their kind was a threat, not a gift. She'd locked that memory away, letting it fester into the beliefs that shaped her life. Now, as she hovered between life and death, those images flickered like an old film reel. Lila's face blurred into Maya's, those same steady hands, that same quiet strength. When Dorothy's eyes opened hours later, she was back in her room, an oxygen mask strapped to her face, the steady beep of a monitor filling the silence. And there was Maya, sitting by her bedside, her head bowed over a clipboard. Dorothy stared at her, the fog of her mind clearing just enough to register something new. This girl, this black girl, had saved her, just like Lila had. The thought lodged in her chest, sharp and unfamiliar. She didn't say anything that day, or the next. Her body was too weak, her voice too frail. But she watched. For the first time, she really watched Maya. The way she moved through the home, her steps light but purposeful. The way she spoke to the other residents, Mr. Henderson with his gruff jokes, Mrs. Carter with her endless complaints, always patient, always kind. Even when a nurse snapped at her for no reason, or when a resident muttered something under their breath, Maya didn't falter. She'd smile, nod, keep going. And with Dorothy, she was the same. She brought her water, adjusted her pillows, checked her vitals, all without a hint of resentment, despite everything Dorothy had said. It unsettled her. Dorothy had spent her life believing kindness was a transaction, something earned, something owed. But Maya gave it freely, even to her. Why? The question gnawed at her, keeping her awake at night as she lay staring at the ceiling. She remembered her mother's words, "They only do it for something." But what did Maya want? Dorothy had nothing to give, no money, no power, just a bitter tongue and a fading body. Yet Maya stayed. A week after the heart attack, Dorothy found her voice again. Maya was in her room, wiping down the bedside table with a rag, her movements quiet and precise. The afternoon light slanted through the window, catching the curve of her cheek. Dorothy cleared her throat, the sound raspy but deliberate. Maya turned, surprised. "Miss Dorothy? You need something?" she asked, setting the rag down. Dorothy's lips trembled, but she forced the words out. "Why do you still treat me kindly?" Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "I haven't been nice to you." Maya paused, her dark eyes meeting Dorothy's pale ones. For a moment, she seemed to weigh her answer, as if searching for the right way to say it. Then she smiled, not the practiced smile of a nurse, but something softer, real. "Because I believe anyone can change if they want to," she said. "And I don't want anyone to feel alone." The words hung in the air, simple but heavy. Dorothy felt them settle into her, like rain soaking into dry earth. She didn't respond, she couldn't. Her throat tightened, and she turned her head away, staring at the wall. But inside, something shifted. She saw Lila again, heard her laugh by the creek, felt the sting of her own silence all those years ago. And she saw Maya, here and now, offering her something she didn't deserve. Not yet. Over the next few days, Dorothy said little, but her eyes followed Maya everywhere. When Maya brought her tea, she didn't push it away. When Maya helped her into her wheelchair, she didn't flinch. It wasn't a grand change, not yet, but it was a crack in the wall she'd built, a sliver of light breaking through. She started noticing things she'd ignored before, the way Maya hummed softly while she worked, the way she stayed late to read to Mrs. Carter, the way she never let the cruelty of others dim her warmth. It was a kindness Dorothy didn't understand, but one she couldn't deny. One evening, as Maya tucked a blanket around her shoulders, Dorothy reached out, her hand trembling. She touched Maya's wrist, just for a second, then pulled back. "Thank you," she whispered, so quiet it was almost lost in the rustle of the fabric. Maya looked at her, startled, then nodded. "You're welcome, Miss Dorothy," she said, her voice gentle. Dorothy didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, her mind a tangle of memories and questions. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel: shame. Not just for how she'd treated Maya, but for the life she'd lived, the beliefs she'd clung to. And beneath that shame, a flicker of something else: hope, maybe. Hope that it wasn't too late to be different. Maya didn't know it yet, but she'd planted a seed. It was small, fragile, buried deep in a heart that had been cold for too long. But it was there, waiting to grow. The days after Dorothy's heart attack stretched into weeks, and Evergreen Nursing Home began to feel the ripples of her slow transformation. It wasn't loud or obvious, not at first. Dorothy didn't suddenly become warm or chatty. But the sharp edges of her words dulled, and the cold glares she once aimed at Maya softened into something quieter, more thoughtful. She still sat by her window most days, her quilt draped over her lap, but now her eyes followed Maya with a curiosity she couldn't quite name. And yet, not everyone noticed the change, or cared to. Dorothy's past wasn't a secret at Evergreen. The staff whispered about it in the break room: how she'd come from a family that owned land and people, how she'd once bragged about the good old days when everyone knew their place. Some of the younger nurses, especially those of color, avoided her when they could. They'd check her chart, drop off her meals, and leave without a word. Even the older staff, who'd known her for years, had grown distant, their patience worn thin by her decades of bitterness. "She's a relic," one orderly muttered once, loud enough for Maya to overhear. "Let her fade out." It didn't happen all at once, but Dorothy felt it, the isolation creeping in like a chill. Her tray would sit untouched for hours, her call button ignored until Maya came by. Conversations in the hall hushed when she was wheeled past, and the few residents who'd once tolerated her company stopped visiting. At first, she told herself it didn't matter. She'd lived alone with her pride for years, she could do it again. But then she saw the irony, sharp and bitter as a winter wind: she was being treated the way she treated Maya. Dismissed. Unseen. And it hurt more than she'd expected. One morning, she watched from her window as a group of nurses laughed together in the courtyard, their voices bright against the gray sky. Maya was among them, her head thrown back in a rare moment of abandon. Dorothy's chest tightened. She'd never been part of something like that, not in decades, maybe not ever. And now, at 92, she was alone, surrounded by people who'd written her off. Except for one. Maya didn't avoid her. Even now, after all the insults and cold shoulders, Maya came every day. She'd bring a cup of tea, "just in case you're thirsty, Miss Dorothy," and linger a moment longer than necessary, adjusting the curtains or fluffing a pillow. She'd talk sometimes, about small things: the weather, a bird she'd seen outside, a song she'd heard on the radio. Dorothy rarely answered, but she listened. And slowly, she began to see what she'd missed: Maya wasn't just kind to her out of duty. She was kind because it was who she was. That realization hit hardest one afternoon in late spring. The air was thick with the scent of blooming magnolias, and Maya had suggested taking Dorothy outside. "It's too nice to stay cooped up," she'd said, her voice light. Dorothy hadn't argued, a first. Maya wheeled her to the garden, settling her beneath a sprawling oak tree where the breeze rustled the leaves. For a while, they sat in silence, the world soft and alive around them. Dorothy's hands rested in her lap, her quilt forgotten on her bed for once. She felt the sun on her face, the air in her lungs, and something else, a weight lifting she hadn't known she carried. Then it came, sudden and unbidden. A tear slipped down her cheek, then another. She tried to stop them, but they wouldn't obey. Maya noticed, her brow furrowing. "Miss Dorothy. Are you okay?" Dorothy shook her head, her voice breaking as she spoke. I was wrong, Maya, the words trembled, fragile as glass. Kindness has no color. Thank you, for not hating me. Maya froze, her breath catching. She'd waited for this, not expected it, but hoped for it, and now it was here, raw and real. She reached out, her hand hovering for a moment before resting gently on Dorothy's. The old woman didn't pull away. Her fingers, thin and cold, curled slightly around Maya's, clinging to the warmth. I never hated you, Maya said softly. I just wanted you to see me. Dorothy nodded, tears streaming now. She saw her, saw the girl who'd saved her life, who'd borne her cruelty with grace, who'd offered her a chance she hadn't earned. In that moment, the walls she'd built crumbled, not with a crash but with a sigh, leaving her open and vulnerable for the first time in years. She thought of Lila again, the friend she'd lost to her family's hate, and whispered, I'm sorry, though she wasn't sure who it was for, Lila, Maya, or herself. Maya squeezed her hand, her own eyes glistening. It's okay, she said. It's never too late. And it wasn't. Not yet. Word of Dorothy's change spread slowly through Evergreen, like a river carving a new path. It started with the staff noticing small things, she thanked them now, her voice gruff but sincere. She stopped snapping at the aides of color, even asked one how her day was going. The residents saw it too. At breakfast, she'd nod at them instead of staring through them, and once, she joined a card game in the common room, her shaky hands fumbling but her spirit willing. It wasn't a miracle, but it was enough to turn heads. The real shift came at the home's annual spring celebration. The dining hall was decked out with flowers and streamers, the air buzzing with chatter. Dorothy, wheeled in by Maya, sat near the front as the director called for speeches. To everyone's surprise, Dorothy raised a trembling hand. With Maya's help, she stood, gripping the armrests of her chair for balance. Her voice was thin but steady as she spoke. I've lived nearly a century with wrong beliefs, she said, her eyes sweeping the room. I thought I knew how the world worked, who mattered and who didn't. But I was wrong. Today, I want to thank someone who taught me that people aren't judged by their skin, but by their hearts. She turned to Maya, her gaze soft. Thank you, Maya. The room erupted in applause, a wave of sound that washed over them both. Dorothy sank back into her chair, exhausted but smiling, a small, genuine smile that lit her face for the first time in years. Maya stood beside her, tears in her eyes, feeling the weight of what they'd built together. After her internship, Maya was offered a full-time job at Evergreen. She accepted without hesitation. Her story with Dorothy became a quiet legend in the home, passed between staff and residents like a shared treasure. It changed things, not overnight, but steadily. People talked more, listened more, saw each other a little clearer. Prejudice didn't vanish, but it lost some of its grip, softened by the proof that even the hardest hearts could bend. Dorothy lived a few more months, her days quieter but fuller. She and Maya spent time together, sitting in the garden, sharing stories, building a bond neither had expected. When Dorothy passed, she left Maya a note, asterisk, you showed me what matters. Keep shining. Asterisk. Maya did. She proved that kindness could bridge generations, heal wounds, and rewrite endings. In the end, it wasn't about color, it was about the human heart, beating strong against the odds. And so, the chapter closes on this extraordinary encounter at Evergreen. What began as a stark clash of worlds, fueled by deep-seated prejudice, ultimately blossomed into an unlikely bond forged in the crucible of compassion. Dorothy's tearful confession, kindness has no color, echoes the profound truth at the heart of our story, a truth that transcends generations and societal divides. Maya's unwavering spirit not only cracked the hardened shell of one elderly woman's heart but also sent ripples of change through the very institution that once stood as a symbol of segregation. This powerful narrative reminds us that even the most deeply ingrained biases can be challenged and overcome by the persistent light of human kindness. It underscores the vital message that our shared humanity trumps the superficial differences that have too often divided us. Thank you for joining us on Heartfelt Tales for this deeply moving exploration. We encourage you to reflect on the themes we've explored today and share your own experiences and insights in the comments. Your engagement helps us foster a community where stories of hope and transformation can thrive. If you were moved by Maya and Dorothy's journey, please give this video a like and subscribe for more compelling stories that touch the heart and illuminate the human spirit. Until next time, remember that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change the world.